All right, let's see. Come on now. The volume. All right, forget that. All right, this right here is a template that I designed today. The whole purpose of this template is to teach individuals how to write a VBA Excel loop statement. No matter how much you go out online and you try to look up codes or whatever, if you don't understand that when you name ranges, you name your containers such as integers and variants and strings, if you don't understand that that name must be the exact same throughout the code, then you're not going to be successful at writing any codes or even understanding them. So my purpose in writing this or creating this in Microsoft Excel with formulas is so that it does the work for you and you can see the change. So let's look here in column A is actually the code that will be written for you. And that's what you're going to copy from column A and paste into a VBA module window and run the code. Now, column I are the questions that it asks you, and in column J is where you put your response. All right, first off, I1. If you'd like to begin a VBA code, please type a name for your new code. So this is the name of the whole new VBA code that I want to eventually run. Let's change it from do it all to Kenny sample 1. Now, notice how it changed in column A1. Now, column I2 says name loop number, and then name your loop in number, and name the range for loop and in number. Okay, what that is, you're going to give 3 containers 3 different names. 2 of the containers are for integers, which are numbers. You cannot have a loop statement without a number. So the first loop statement that I want to be named is basically going to be an integer, which means a number. So if you put integer or long, it's the same. Both of those stand for containers that holds a number. So the first one we're just going to have as an integer. So I want to change. So you see how I have it here, KLP1 comma space KLP2 comma space KKRNG. The way that I've designed it, and my code will use left, right, find, and concatenate to put it together when it pulls it in column A. But how you must write it is the name of your first container, comma, 1 space, and then the name of your second container, comma, space, and the name of your third and last. No spaces should be before the first character, and none should be after the last. Okay, so let's go ahead and change this. My very first loop statement, I want to call it K number 1. The next one, and just so this makes sense, K num loop. So this lets you know this is what the loop is going to be used for. The next one is K num end loop. And the last one is space K keys, which is my last name, range. That's the range that's going to be impacted. Now, if you can see here, I didn't add my space here, so I need 1 space there. We have our comma and 1 space there. All right, so now we have everything, and because let's go ahead and stretch this out so it makes a lot of sense to you, where you can see, come on now. I want you to be able to see the spaces, and you can see them now. All right, now look over here in column A. See how it changed the information? And look at it throughout the document. It says dim basically means to create. So we want to create a K num loop as an integer, which is a container that holds a number, and comma, space, what's your next container name? That's going to be K num end loop as long, which is the same thing. That's for the ending number where the loop will end. And long and integer both mean that you're going to have a number inside those containers. And the very last one is keys, my last name, range, as the range. And that's the range that's going to be impacted by the loop statement. All right. And if you look here at K3, see how KNUM is already there? Because that's for KNUM loop. And you look all through the document, you see it. Look at line 6 in column A. For KNUM loop equals KNUM loop to KNUM in loop statement. So basically, this template writes it for you the way it's supposed to be, because a lot of times if you're not used to writing a loop statement, if you leave one of those names out where it belongs, the code is not going to work. So this is my way of trying to create a template that's going to get you familiar with writing loop statements effectively and efficiently without making any mistakes the first time. All right, so now we're going to go down to the third line for I. Starting row for your loop. I wanted to start looping at the very first row. And the reason is, let's go to sheet 2. See how I don't really have a name above? You know, look at column A, 1. It just starts with a number. So that's exactly what I want to do. But we're going to change that. But let's go back here to our for loop. All right, so I want to start at row 1. Now, it says I4 says set sheet name and range locations in the sheet. All right, let's go ahead and stretch this out so you can see it. Makes more sense when it's stretched out, because this is how it's going to look in the VBA module. All right, so the very first is going to be 2 options here in column J4. First, I want to give the name to the sheet. What sheet do I want to go in and find the data? Let's change it to sheet 2. So here we're going to change tested to sheet 2. So that means it's going to be impacting this sheet right here, sheet 2. Let's go back here to the for loop. All right, now the very second thing we want to impact is what is the range within sheet 2 that we want to impact. I want to impact from A1 to C12. Oh, not 112, just to C12. There we go. Change this back to blue. I guess that makes sense. Okay. All right. And in column column I5. Oh, I'm not done yet. If you look in column A, you'll see how it says set keys range, which is the name of the new range. I want it to be for this particular workbook here that we're working in. Dot worksheets, and the worksheet that's going to impact is what we told it, sheet 2. And the range is going to be A through 12. And all that's information, I'll click in here so you can see. See, there's a formula, and it pulls all the information that we type over here in column J. There's no thinking on your part, because my formulas do the work for you, and it writes the code for you to make certain it's right the first time. Now, let's go down here to I6. That's I5. Now, my KNUM end loop statement, I want my loop to end at what number? Well, I don't need to put a number there, wherever the last row that has something in it. So let's go to sheet 2. Notice here in column A, that's the number, that's the column that's going to be looking at. As you can see there, I did say 12, so let me go ahead and write. Let me go here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And I can just put anything in these cells right here. I don't care what's in these cells. All right, so now I just want to make certain that none of the formatting, I want to clear all the formatting before we do anything. Okay, so now let's go back to the for loop statement. So I want it to end at the very last row that has something in it. So the last row in sheet 2 is 16. So all from A1 to C 16, there's something in it. But as you remember, I told it I want my loop statement to end. I'm going to make my loop statement end at 12. So let's go back here. No, actually, no, I'm not going to do that. But let's say that I wanted it to. I would have to change this right here. Let's select it. I'd have to change this right here, the formula here, just to a number, which would be 12. And I don't want to do that because there's something in there. So I'm just going to leave it as it is. So the loop statement will end where the row, where, you know, the data in the very last row ends in that range. So let's go back here once again. So the statement is going to impact from column row 1 to row 16 in this case, because I wanted to actually loop into the very last row that contains data. Okay, and so now we're looking at I6. This is only for 4 next loop statements. So J shows you that we're going to start the for statement. Okay, so in A1, it's going to be for, it's going to be K num loop, which is where the loop is going to start. That container holds the number, and the number will be 1. So it's like saying for 1 equals 1 to K num n loop statement. And what do we say? It was the last statement, so it's going to be 16 for that last row in that range. So it's going to be like saying for 1 equals number 1 to number 16, step 1. Step 1 means to go 1 increment up. So if you start at 1, it'll be 2 the next one after the loop is run and successfully done. And then after that loop statement is done for 2, it'll be 3, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If I wanted it to be increments of 2, I would have step 2. So it would be 2, row 2, row 4, row 6, et cetera. In this case, it's going to be row 1, row 2, 1, 3, row 3, row 5, row 6, row 7, et cetera, until it gets to row 16. All right, now what do we want it to do? Now, that's for line 7. Line 7, as you can see in I, we only want this to affect the font color. So based on the loop, my code does the work for you. Keys range, which that range is from A1 to C12, basically. And then it says font dot color index equals num K num loop. Now K num loop is the one that holds the 1. So each time it increases, it'll be 1, 2, and you have to understand that the color index in VBA, it basically had each number from 1 to 50, I think it's 1 to 53, represents a color. And so each time the loop increments, every row is going to have a different color. And the very last thing you want is under that line is next, because that ends out the for next loop statement, and then you close your sub. So let's go ahead and copy this now. Copy. Then we're going to go to Developer, the Developer tab. Click on Visual Basic. We already have all our codes, but here, let's go ahead and paste. And so here we have the code, the new code from our template. And we've already told it everything we want to impact. So let's go ahead and quickly look at sheet 2. Now let's go back here and let's run the code. All right, so let's run the code. Now as you see, it just ran and we didn't get any error message. That means it worked. So let's go back here to sheet 2 and see what happened. Sure enough, it actually changed everything. And so as you can see in the code here, we'll go back here, because it actually did all 16 of them. So for us to even have A12 for the range was irrelevant, because it impacted everything based upon the for statement. So that range, even though there's a range there, it ignored it altogether, and it basically went all the way down to 16. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the while Wend statement. We already did the for next loop statement, so let's change this to, let's say, let's just give it any name we want, any name. Let's say Oopa Loopa. All right. Now let's change these to anything. They don't have to make sense. So the very first one is going to be the loop for the loop container. That's going to loop 1, 2, 3, 4 through the rows. Let's call it Oopa Loop, comma, space. The ending number, let's just call it end number for the loop. The loop will end at this particular container number, comma, space, and the range is going to be KK range. And notice how it changed them over here in column A. You see dim Oopa Loopa is integer, end num is long, KK range is range. And column A1 shows Oopa Loopa, and we want to start at 1. Let's stretch this out once again. Come on. Sorry, I'm having trouble. Stretching this out. Let's see. I don't want to stretch that out. I want to stretch this. Come on. There we go. We can go ahead and hide this again. Don't want to look at that. All right, and let's stretch this one out too. Okay, so now you can see the commas and everything. All right. So everything that we've changed it to, you can look down here, you can see all of what. Now this one right here is going to work from the tested. Well, I did sheet 2, but we have tested, but I'm not going to do tested. Let's go ahead and add a new sheet. Let's go ahead and rename this to Jippa. And now let's do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And let's just put anything in these 2 rows right here. Okay. All right. So we see clearly where the range is. All right. So now our range is A1 through C10. So it's Jippa. So let's go to here, our while Wend statement. Instead of tested, we're going to change this to Jippa. And let's go back over here and get rid of that. All right, and let's change this from A1 to A. Did I say 10? Yeah, I mean 10. Yeah, A10. Okay. Now we going to go down here, and this is for only while Wend. So let's change this because that's not right. This is while Wend loop only. Okay, so this must be start out the while statement. All right, this is the first line of the while statement. So as you look over here, you see in column A, line 6, you see while cells, Oopa Loop 1. So we're talking about in the cells, it always starts with row count first. So Oopa Loopa stands for the row. Let's say if we start at row 1, comma, and the 3 is for the column. So we want this to impact the 3rd column. If we go here to Jippa, if we start in row 1, we want to impact C1. So let's go ahead based upon the numbers there. So let's go back here to while Wend. And it's going to impact the font color for the column C only. Okay. So let's go ahead and copy this, paste it in the copy. Let's go over here to the Visual Basic module window. paste it. Now let's go ahead and run it. So first, let's look at it again. Go back over here. We're going to look at JIPA. There's JIPA. We're looking at it right here. And let's go ahead and clear the format because it's going to be changing colors. So clear the format just so it makes sense to you. Okay, column C is what should be impacted when we run the code. Let's click in here. What's going on here? Okay. Let's click in here anywhere. And let's run user form. It did what it's supposed to do. So let's go here and look and see if it did it. And it did. It impacted only column C. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we are going to go back here to our spreadsheet template. And we're going to go to delete rows upwards. Okay. Let's go ahead and change this name to this VBA Excel code to okay, whatever. All right. And I'm just going to leave the other stuff the same because you've already seen what happens. In this case, we want to basically, once again, we're going to change this because we want MEG1 to be 1. We'll change it there. And let's see, JIPA. I want JIPA to be impacted. JIPA. Okay. And of course, I think we said 10. I'm not sure. Let's look over here. Yeah, 10. Okay. And let's see, is there anything else we need to? Okay, now it's going to delete upwards starting from the very last row. And so in JIPA, the last row is 10. So it's going to delete upwards from 10, not row 10, to 9, to 8. And what it's going to look for, let's go back here. What it's going to look for is the rows that are basically divided, a division of 2. And the result will be 0. Let's just say 10 divided by 2 is 5. So basically, it's an even 5. Okay, so 10, you have 2 goes into 10 5 times. There is no remainder, it's 0. So basically, if the remainder is 0, then it needs to delete that one. So anything that's can be divided by 2 and has no remainder, that line's going to be deleted. So that means line 10, line 8, line 6, line 5, line 10, 8, 6, 4, and 2 are going to be deleted. That's going to leave rows 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So let's go to the code. Sorry. Let's go to code here. So, okay. So if now I use the module example in column J is 8 mod 4 equals 0. But if you look over here in column A, line 7, it says if me2 container, which is the container for the last very row, which is 10 right now. So that means if row 10, column A, equals whatever that number is, so there's going to be 10 in there. Mod is like saying divided by 2. So 10 divided by 2 is 5 equals 0, remainder, and that's exactly right. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. Once 5 goes into that, it leaves 0 remainders. So if that is the case, then it needs to do the statement below it. So it's going to delete that entire row. Okay, so let's go ahead and, okay, let's change this because this will confuse you all. Delete entire row. All right, so let's go ahead and copy this. Copy. Go into the module window. Paste it. And now let's run the code. But before we do, let's go ahead and look at JIPA, which is what it's going to be impacting. So you see it's 10 rows of data right now. It's going to reduce it to 5. So let's go ahead and run it. JIPA. Okay, it did that, so it means it worked. Sure enough, it reduced it to 5. So see, it left 1, the thing that had 1 in it, 3, 5, 7, and 9, and got rid of all the ones that were equal numbers. And that's the last of it. And also I have one more tab here to show you. This is my ASCII tab, because using my formulas, you're going to have quotations around like your ranges and things like that, but you cannot, how VBA is how Microsoft Excel formulas are, you can't put 2 quotations around 2 quotations or even a single quotation. So I have to use an ASCII version of the quotation, double quotation mark, which is 34. So right here, this number right here will be unichar 34. And let me go ahead and show you the code. So if we were to go here to one of the codes, let's go right here. Let's go in this line right here. Come on. All right, let's go here. Here is where you can see the Unicode. See where you have it here, unichar 34, and then you have it surrounding. Come on. And then you have it here. Have it here, and you have it here. So that's how I'm able to actually have my quotations appear so you can see, because a quotation, when you do it, it's usually to show text, and the quotation marks are not usually visible. So the only way you can make them visible is to actually do it by using Unicode, and that's how you can see those in this spreadsheet sample. Okay, so now that we've done these examples, I hope that this is easy for you to understand. I'm also going to load this to my Amazon drive, and I'm going to create a link to it so you can actually download this file and use it, work with it, learn VBA loop statements if you like. And I encourage everybody who uses this, if this is too difficult for you, after listening to me go over it and using it yourself, if this is too difficult for you, I don't think that any of my books or any books will be good enough for you to actually learn, JavaScript, VBA, or any other program languages, because it shows that you're not really someone who's into it. So, for those of you who are into it, I wish you luck on learning VBA Excel loop statements.